Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Today is Thursday. Did you see that ghost chair? It was moving along all by itself. Oh my God. So, happy Thursday. I'll give everybody a minute to join in. And starting up from the top, we're taking a look at Lesson 4, Conversation 1. So, how is everyone doing today? So, before we get into lesson 4, let's talk a little bit about a great question I got from a student. She posted it in our group and asked this really good question. So she said that when I say the word mountain, or a word like that, Mountain, she said, "Oh, Kyle, when you say the word mountain, it sounds like the end of the word kind of disappears. The AIN disappears. What's going on with that?" So what's happening here is in the word mountain, the T is actually not a T sound. So the letter T can have more than one sound. And most students think, oh, I see T, so it needs to be T, that sound. But actually, that's only one sound that the T makes. T makes other sounds too. If you make a T sound, T will be in some words like table and tooth. So a lot of the times at the beginning of a word, it will have T, teeth, table, Tim, tomorrow, stuff like that. Sometimes you will hear a T in the middle too. I can think of the word pertain, pertaining to blah, blah, blah. That's a hard word, but I'll have to think of more examples of in the middle, it goes t, t, t. And then if the T letter is in the middle of a word or at the end, sometimes it makes different sounds too. So if a T is in the middle or the end, it often does not go T. So in the word mountain, you can't hear a T, right? There's no T sound. This is called a stop. The way you make this sound is when you get to the T, you stop all of the air and all of the sound coming out of your mouth. So mountain actually sounds like mountain, mountain. So the T is where you stop, mount, and then you let it go. So mountain, mountain actually sounds like mountain, and you hear that N sound at the end. There are other words that sound like this too, like the word that we learned about the present perfect tense, right? I ate lunch, and then you could say I have eaten lunch. EATEN, that T is a stop. Eaten. So I have eaten lunch. There's no T in there, right? And then one more sound that T can make is a D sound sometimes. It sounds like D. So, like the word water, WATER. In my accent, an American accent, we do not say water. We say water. It sounds like duh, 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 water. I would like to drink some water. Okay? And then a word like butter, BUTTER. If you have toast, you put butter on your toast. So butter on the toast, butter. It sounds like a D, right? So if you see T, don't think, oh, it's always going to be t, t, t. Sometimes it's a stop sound, and then sometimes it's a d sound. So we have table, water, mountain, or eaten, or written, or button, certain. So there's that stop sound, and then it follows with an N on a lot of these examples. There's that stop where air is coming out of your mouth, E, then an N sound. So the N, you put your tongue on the top of your mouth and go, So eat, mountain, written, gotten, certain, Okay? So it's actually pretty tricky. That T is actually a stop. So don't always think you see T and go ta. Okay? So let's get into our homework for this lesson. So we're on lesson 4, conversation 1. Okay? And this time you are out shopping with your friend and you're looking around at some skincare stuff. Oh, you want to take care of your skin. Maybe you need some sunscreen or maybe something to make you look nice. And the person at the counter says, "Oh, is this your daughter? Oh my gosh, we're the same age. How could you say that to me? Oh my gosh." And so you're shocked by this. Oh, but it's okay. You're in a good mood. You're a positive personality. So they say, "Oh, is that your daughter? Oh, maybe I should take care of my skin." But then you decide, "I don't need all this skincare stuff. I want to get a gym membership." And so you go to the gym and you end up talking to a sales associate. And the sales associate tells you about these 3 plans: the silver plan, the gold plan, and the platinum plan. And silver plan seems pretty basic. The gold plan, you get to work out with this big guy, Bruno, and Bruno will yell at you, blah, 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 hurry, fast, fast, fast. And then if you get the platinum plan, what happens? Well, Bruno comes to your house, hits you with a chair and wakes you up. Holy moly. So why would he hit you with a chair? Well, in a lot of gyms where big beefy men exercise and want to be strong, sometimes they think it's really manly and powerful to hit each other with things. So someone I know who exercises a lot and works with a football team, an American football team. These guys are huge. Sometimes just to show that they were strong men, they would hit each other with pieces of wood and break the wood on their backs. Holy moly, a little bit too extreme, right? So maybe if you really, really want to get strong and work hard, you can let Bruno break a chair on your back. Pretty wild, right? Okay, I think that's a little bit too much for me. I think the silver plan might be right up my alley, okay? Now, let's take a look at our homework today. We have lesson 4, conversation 1, part 2. And this time, we're talking about the words might and could. We're talking about how sure we are of something. Are you sure of that? I'm not sure. Maybe, so you're getting a feeling of something. You're trying to talk about something you have ideas about, but maybe you don't know for sure, okay? Let's say you're about 50% sure of something. You could use words like might or could. If you're a little bit more sure, you're almost sure, you can use words like must. And then if you know something is impossible, you can use words like can't or couldn't, right? We'll get to the negatives a little bit later. But to start, we have must is you're pretty sure. Like, I think I know the answer. And if you're not really sure, you have an idea, but maybe 50-50, you might use might or could, okay? So let's take a look at some of our sentences. Our first sentence is, 你可能是我遇过最好笑的人. Okay. So you might say this to your friend or somebody you meet. And you could translate this as, you might be the funniest person I've ever met. So you might be the funniest person I've ever met. Okay? Now I use the word might. You might be the funniest person I've ever met. Now might is used to show, I'm not exactly sure, but I have a feeling. Okay? Now, we could also use the word could. You could be the funniest person I've ever met, okay? And people will argue which is more. So some people think that might is stronger. Other people think could is stronger. But reality, they're kind of the same. Might and could are almost the same meaning, right? So here in this sentence, I used might because I'm comfortable using might a little bit more. You might be the funniest person I've ever met. You could also use could. You could be the funniest person I've ever met. Whatever feels more natural for you. Don't worry about the difference, okay? Now, the funniest person I've ever met, okay? So, I've ever met, let's talk about that first. That's in the present perfect tense because it's in your life. It's an experience. Out of all of the people I've met in my life, so we're talking about an experience from my birth until now. So I've ever met, okay? So we use the present perfect there to talk about an experience. Now, one thing that a few people had trouble with was the funniest person. So you need to be careful about this. So this is saying you are number one, meaning you are the best. You are the most funny person I have ever met. Now, funny, there's some rules about using the word most and using est. So you got to be careful about this. So funny has 2 syllables, funny. And then, so with the word funny, you would say the funniest. So add est to the end of it. For the word funny, you should not use the word most. The most funny person. It sounds a little bit uncomfortable, or not uncomfortable, but it's not smooth. Most people will say the funniest. You're the funniest person I've ever met. Now, for 1-syllable words, you always add est. Today was the hottest day ever. So most hot becomes hottest, the hottest. Or January is the coldest month, right? Now, for 2-syllable words like funny, it could be an est or most. Usually, if it's 2 syllables, it will be est. So funny becomes funniest, okay? Silly, silliest. There are a few words that will be 2-syllable but use most. The most modern museum or something like that. But most 2-syllable words should use est. So the funniest, okay? Now, if it's more than 2 syllables, like 3 or 4 or whatever, like beautiful, beautiful is 3 sounds. If it's more sounds, you use the word most. The most beautiful painting, okay? So if you want to use the word funny in the sentence, you should use est, the funniest. I also saw a student use the word hilarious, hilarious, 4 syllables. So what do we do with hilarious? You should add the word most. So you might be the most hilarious person I've ever met. So that's good. But for funny, add est at the end. Do not say most funny, okay? Or do not say most fun. Here, we want to say funny, meaning they say things that make people laugh. Saying this person is the most fun means they're fun to be around. They make you happy and you enjoy doing stuff with them. But if we're talking about ha ha ha, you make me laugh, you want to use the word funny, okay? I also saw someone use the word humorous, humorous. Now, humorous works here too. Humorous means funny. But then the word humorous has 3 syllables. So what do? In front of it, you put the most humorous person I've ever met. That's a little bit more formal, but it's correct. So I would stick with the funniest or the most hilarious. Those would both be okay. Okay? So the end should be I've ever met because it's a experience, right? The present perfect tense, which we talked a lot about last week. Okay. Next up is 看他的样子，他一定是生气了。Maybe you see your friend and he's like this. Hopefully your friend doesn't do that. And what could you say? Oh my gosh, look at his expression. He must be angry. Okay? So his expression is the way he's moving his face, maybe like this. Okay? Or you could keep it simple and say, look at him. He must be angry. Okay? So the first thing that everybody needs to remember is this needs to be two sentences. In Chinese, you use a comma to separate the two ideas. In English, we need a period, two different sentences. Look at his expression, period. He must be angry, period. Okay? If you want it in one sentence, I've said this a million times, you need a connecting word. Okay? You would need a word like and or something like that. Here, it's better to keep it as two sentences because they're two separate ideas. There's not a really good way to connect to these. Okay? So you could say, look at him or look at his expression. Now we use look by itself to tell someone what to do. Okay? So you don't want to add the word to. So don't say to look at him. You just say, look at him. Look at him is kind of like you look at him. But we don't need the word you when we're telling someone what to do. Okay? I also saw a student write, see how he acts. Now, this is okay, but it's not a common phrase. See how he acts? That would be, in general, the way he acts every day. Okay? But if we're talking about right now, it would be better to say, look at him or look at his expression. Expression is like 他的表情, like the way his face looks, maybe. Okay? So, to show that you are pretty sure of something, I think I know how he's feeling. We want to use the word must, right? He must be angry. Okay? I also saw a student write, I think he might be angry. This sentence is not wrong. The grammar is correct, but the meaning is different. That means if you say he might be angry, that means you're not really sure. You have a feeling, but you're not sure. But if you see his face like this, you're pretty sure you know how he feels. You'd say, oh, he must be angry. Okay? And then I saw a student use the word looks. You could use looks if you say, he looks like he must be angry. You could say that. But you don't need to say he looks like. He looks like he must be angry. That would be okay, but you can keep it simple. He must be angry. Okay? Next up is 他可能会是下一届总统. Oh, excuse me if my tones get messed up. Switching from English to Chinese and back and forth messes me up. So, 他可能会是下一届总统. So he could be the next president. Ooh, really? So he could be the next president. So you see a guy and he seems really smart and says a lot of good stuff. Maybe he's charming and he understands the country and he's a really good guy. You could say, wow, he could be the next president. So you really believe in this person. Okay? Now, why do I use could here? Okay? You can use the word might. That's okay. He might be the next president. But I use the word could. It sounds like it fits this sentence a little bit better. He could be the next president. Now, why? Might and could are almost the same, but remember the word could comes from the word can. So in that word, there's a feeling of possibility. It's possible. We know it can happen, or I feel like it can happen. I'm not sure, but there's that he has the ability to do it. He's able to do it. So if you use the word could, it kind of gives the feeling of the words to be able to or can do something, okay? Might and could are almost the same, but remember, since could comes from can, it includes some of that feeling. So by saying he could be the next president, you're kind of hinting that maybe he has the ability to do it. It's not that just I think it's a chance, I think he actually has some ability. Maybe he can do some cool stuff or good stuff, okay? So the difference is very small. It's almost the same. But sometimes, depending on the feeling of the words, you could choose could instead of might, okay? The meaning is almost the same. The feeling is a little bit different, okay? So he could be the next president. So keep it simple. The next president. We have a president now, and then the next president. And we use the because we know there's only one. There's a certain president that's coming next. So we can use the word the. Here we would not use the word a next president. The word or the letter A, is kind of like any. It has a feeling of like any, like it's out there in the world. So he could be a next president. That would mean he could be a president somewhere in the world. But if we're talking about the country we're in now, we would use the word the, right? Because we know which next president you're talking about, okay? Okay, and then we want to keep it simple by saying the next president. You don't need to say the president next round or something like that. So in Chinese, you have 下一届总统, but we don't need that next round part in English. You could just say the next president. The word next describes president, okay? Our next sentence is 明天是连假开始，高速公路可能会塞车. Oh my gosh. So you got to be careful if you're going out tomorrow, right? So I write, tomorrow's the start of the long weekend. There might be a ton of traffic on the highway. Now that's probably how I would say it when talking to my mom or something. Tomorrow's the start of the long weekend. There might be a ton of traffic on the highway. Now another way you could say it is, the long weekend starts tomorrow. There might be a traffic jam on the highway. Okay? Both are okay. So tomorrow's the start of the long weekend. So I'm focusing on the word tomorrow. I'm focusing on the day. Tomorrow's the start of the long weekend. So I want to focus on tomorrow, so I put that first. Tomorrow is the start of the long weekend. Okay? If I want to put the focus on the long weekend, you can flip it around. The long weekend starts tomorrow. Okay? So both are okay depending on what is more important to you. I think tomorrow the time is more important. Tomorrow is the start of the long weekend. Okay? And then the second part, there might be a ton of traffic on the highway. So a ton of traffic. Traffic means cars moving on the road. So I might say there might be a ton of traffic on the road. I just mean there might be a ton of different cars and trucks on the road. It might be really, really busy, okay? So that's what I would generally say. There might be a ton of traffic on the road, and that's bad. It doesn't have to be a traffic jam to be bad, right? So there might be a ton of traffic on the highway. Now, you could also say there might be a traffic jam on the highway. If you say a traffic jam, you're being more specific. A traffic jam is one place where the cars are stuck. So that's being more specific. If I don't want to predict specifically if there will be a traffic jam, I want to say in general there might be a ton of traffic. Okay? So both are okay. The focus is a little bit different. Okay? So tomorrow is the start of the long weekend. So I would say the long weekend because you have Saturday and Sunday, that's the weekend, but then you add 1 or 2 extra days. Maybe you have Friday and Thursday off. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That would be a long weekend. You take the weekend and make it longer, right? Okay? You could also use the words vacation or holiday. Those would be okay, but if you use vacation or holiday, it sounds like it's going to be a longer time. So in America, we would usually use the word vacation for like a long break, maybe a week vacation. We have Christmas vacation or something like that. Now in England, they use the word holiday to mean vacation, a Christmas holiday, meaning the week around Christmas. But in American English, the word holiday usually is talking about one day. Like Christmas, December 25th is a holiday, okay? Or Halloween is a holiday. It's talking about that one day, okay? So England, holiday means vacation. America, holiday usually means that one day, okay? So here we could use, in this sentence, we could use long weekend or vacation in American English. In British English, you could use holiday, okay? You should say there might be a ton of traffic. There might be a ton of traffic. So it's there, okay? Or there might be a traffic jam, okay? Meaning it will exist in that place, okay? I saw a few different ways people wrote this. There might be tons of traffic. There might be a traffic jam. There might be terrible traffic. All of these are good. Or there might be bad traffic. You could say that too. So if you use be in traffic, be traffic jam, all of those are okay. Now, a lot of students use in. So tomorrow, there might be in a traffic jam or might be in traffic. Now, if we're talking about tomorrow, you don't want to use the word in. In a traffic jam means I'm driving and oop, my car is in a traffic jam. So that means the other cars are around you, so you are in a traffic jam. But if we're talking about tomorrow, you are not in a traffic jam. Not yet. Maybe tomorrow you will be. But so being in a traffic jam means you're actually driving on the highway and the cars are around you. Okay? So if we're talking about tomorrow, you just say be. Be a ton of traffic, be a traffic jam. Okay? And then one more thing. Most everyone said highway, on the highway. Highway is the most common word for 高速公路. And in America, most people use highway. But before we move on, a few people in different parts of America use different words. Most people use highway, but some people in California use the word freeway. So you could say there might be traffic on the freeway. And then in the middle of the United States, some people use the word expressway. So there might be traffic on the expressway. So you still have to learn some different words based on where you go around the world. So you'll have to learn different English words based on where you travel to. If you go to Massachusetts, where I come from, you can use the word highway. But if you go to California, it might be better to use the word freeway. So, oh, I was driving on the freeway. Okay? Now, let's keep on moving. I don't want to keep everybody awake too late. So let's move on to lesson 4, conversation 1, part 3. Okay? This is talking about might, could, and then must, but in the negative, right? Okay? Might not, could not, must not, stuff like that. Okay? So our first sentence is 早上银行应该不会有很多人排队. So you don't want to go to the bank when there are too many people, right? So your friend might suggest this to you. Oh, don't go today. And then you should go tomorrow because there might not be many people at the bank in the morning. Okay? Keep it simple. There might not be many people at the bank in the morning. Another way to do it, being a little closer to the Chinese, you could say, there might not be a lot of people waiting in line at the bank in the morning. Now that's closer to the Chinese, but it's kind of long. There might not be a lot of people waiting in line at the bank in the morning. Right? There might not be a lot of people waiting in line at the bank in the morning. There might not be a lot of people waiting in line at the bank in the morning. Whew. I want you to try that 5 times fast. Whoa. I feel like I'm rapping. Yo, yo, yo. Okay. So the first one, keep it simple. Now, in English, we don't need to use the word waiting in line. Maybe it's natural in Chinese to use 排队 to indicate which people you're talking about. But if we're just talking about people in general in English, we can assume, like, I kind of know you're talking about people in line, the people that are waiting. If there are a lot of people, I know I will have to wait. So you don't need to include the waiting in line part. So there might not be many people at the bank in the morning, okay? One thing to note is the time. Where do you put the time in the sentence? In Chinese, the time goes at the beginning. But in English, the usual place for time is at the end, okay? If you want to put it at the beginning, that makes the time more important. You're saying that in the morning is important to you. So you do in the morning, comma, there might not be many people at the bank. That's okay too. So putting it at the beginning or the end, both are okay. Okay? So this should be there might not be many people at the bank in the morning. Might not means I'm not really sure. There's a chance that there will not be many people. Okay? Can I use the word could not? In our last part, I said might be and could be are basically the same, right? It might be hot tomorrow. It could be hot tomorrow. It's the same thing. But here, can we use might not be or could not be? No. So you got to be careful. When it's negative, might not means I'm not really sure. But if you say could not, it means no way. 100% it's impossible. Okay? So this needs to be, there might not be many people at the bank in the morning. What if I use the word could not? There could not be many people at the bank in the morning. What? How do you know it's impossible? Well, maybe for this sentence, the bank is closed tomorrow. The bank is closed tomorrow. So there could not be many people at the bank. Okay? So could not be means it's impossible. Okay? So be careful of that. Might not, I'm not sure. Could not, it's a big hard no. Okay? So there are a few different ways to say this. There might not be a lot of people waiting in line at the bank. You could also say lining up at the bank. Or you could say in line at the bank. Okay? So all 3 of these. Lining up, in line, waiting in line. All 3 are okay. And then be careful, it would be at the bank. For a place that you, like for a shop, like a bank or a school or a post office, you use the word at the post office, at the bank, at the school, stuff like that, okay? Some people think of some rules for the word at, but try not to stick to rules. Now here, some people use the word in the bank. In the bank is okay. It means the bank is a space and it's in the bank. But right now we're away from the bank. So it's better to use at because at is over there. Okay? So this should start with the word there. There might not be. There might not be many people. Or there might not be a long line. I didn't say that yet. But you should not start with the word bank. Okay? So you should not say the bank might not be blah, blah, blah. Because the bank is not being anything. So make sure to start this sentence with the word there. Okay? So next up is 他们不可能在一起，个性差太多了. Oh, geez. So I would translate this as they couldn't be together. Their personalities are too different. Now, that's one way to do it. Using a little bit more complicated grammar, but a way that I might say it to make it stronger. I might say there's no way they could be together. Their personalities are too different. So that would be changing the grammar and not using the rules we learned here, but I wanted to tell you a different way to say it. So you could say, they couldn't be together. You could also say, there's no way they could be together, okay? Their personalities are too different, okay? So here, we use they couldn't be together, meaning that you see these two people and you think it's impossible. You could also say they must not be together. I saw a few people write that. That's okay. That means that you're pretty sure, you have a strong feeling, oh, they must not be together. Couldn't be is even stronger. It's saying it's impossible. Oh, it's impossible. They couldn't be together. So it depends how sure you are. Couldn't be is stronger than must not be, okay? And also, be is a verb, so it needs to be followed by an adjective. They must not be together, or they couldn't be together. Now, you don't need to have a verb after be. I saw a few students say they couldn't be getting together, or they must not be get together. You don't need that word get or getting. Just be together, okay? So follow this with an adjective here, okay? The second part, their personalities are too different. Now, I say too different, meaning that it's extreme, okay? You could also say this many different ways. Their personalities are totally different. Their personalities are so different, okay? But I did see a few people say a couple different ways. Like I saw they have a big personality difference. Now, that's a little bit too complicated. Keep it simple. They're too different, or they're so different, or they're very different. I also saw, instead of their personalities are too different, I saw they are different in personality. It's better to say their personalities, this thing, are different, okay? So use it in that format. Subject, to be, and then adjective, okay? And then if you want to put this together as one sentence, you need a connecting word, which I saw someone do. And that student wrote, they couldn't be together because their personalities are too different. That's adding a little bit, and that's okay too, okay? Now, next up, let's keep on moving. 你可能是对的，他不可能是凡人，犯人，他很烦人 but 你可能是对的，他不可能是犯人。Okay, sorry about the tones. So, in English, I would say, you might be right. He couldn't be the criminal. Okay? You could also say, he couldn't be a criminal. Okay? And then, one more thing that you'll often hear in police TV shows or movies or detective things, he couldn't be the culprit. Now, culprit is similar to criminal. The word culprit means a person who committed a crime. So if the police are looking for someone, they will have a suspect. A suspect is someone, maybe they think this person did it. He might be the bad guy. I'm not sure. But then the culprit is the person you know did it. When they find out, wow, this guy was the culprit. He is the person who did the bad thing. They committed the crime, okay? So this sentence, you could say, you might be right. He couldn't be the criminal, or he couldn't be the culprit. Let's say we're watching a TV show and your friend says, oh, wow, he was with the hero when the bank was robbed. And you say, oh, yeah, he couldn't be the culprit, or he couldn't be the criminal, okay? This one, not many big problems, so pretty simple. You might be right. You could also say you could be right. You could be right. Both of them are basically the same, okay? You could also say you may be correct, which I saw a student write. You may be correct is okay. It sounds a little bit more formal. Talking with a friend, you'd probably say you might be right, okay? You may be correct, okay? And then he couldn't be the criminal. You could also say he can't be the criminal. That's impossible, okay? So couldn't and can't are basically the same. And then if you're not 100% sure, you could say, oh, he must not be the criminal. So you're pretty sure that he's not the criminal, but you don't think it's impossible yet. Okay? So he must not be the criminal. That would be okay too. Depends on your feelings, right? And so the criminal is the criminal in a movie. A criminal, meaning he might be a criminal, he has done bad things. Or the culprit, meaning the person who did this one bad thing. Okay? I also saw someone write, he couldn't be a suspect. Well, a suspect is someone that maybe is the bad guy. So he probably is already a suspect. But then you think, oh, maybe he did it. But then later you say, oh, he was a suspect, but we know he couldn't be the bad guy. We figured it out. Okay? Now, next up is 这一定不是他的错. Now, there are a few different ways to change this into English, depending on what's going on. Let's say I have a piece of paper and there's some writing on it, and there's a mistake. Somebody made a mistake on the paper, and we're talking about her. And, oh, wait, this doesn't look like her handwriting. So I could say, this must not be her mistake. Okay? Or, oh, this couldn't be her mistake. And so someone made a mistake, but it couldn't be her, or it must not be her. So depending on the feeling. So there was a mistake, and you don't think she did it. So it must not be her mistake. So it was someone else's mistake. Okay? Now, that's focusing on who did that one thing. Maybe someone did the math wrong on some stuff at work. That would be the mistake. Okay? But if we're talking about the reason or who caused something to happen, you could use the word fault. Okay? So a different way to translate the sentence is, oh, it must not be her fault. So there is a mistake. If we're focusing on who caused it to happen, we could talk about fault. It must not be her fault, or it couldn't be her fault. Okay? So mistake is the thing that happened. So if you're saying this is the thing she did, her mistake. But if we're focused on the cause of it, like why did it happen, we could talk about fault. Okay? So it's a little bit tricky, but mistake is the thing that goes wrong. Fault means the reason for why something went wrong. Okay? So this must not be your mistake. That's if we're talking about a piece of paper or pointing to something, this. Or if we're talking in general a situation, you could use it. It must not be your fault. So this for a mistake you're talking about, it could be talking about the situation. It must not be your fault. Okay? So we're moving on to Lesson 4, Conversation 1, Part 4. We have 2 more sections to go. Okay. Now, next up, we're talking about, again, we're doing might, could, and must. I'll try not to repeat myself too many times. But now we're talking about the past tense, right? So before. And now, to make it in the past tense, we use our modal verbs. A modal verb is these words, might, could, must. And then following that, you use the word have, right? And then after we use have, it's kind of like using the present perfect, right? So we have followed by the past participle. So he might have eaten blah, blah, blah. So maybe if your dog is getting sick, and you say, oh, geez, my dog might have eaten something unhealthy. Oh my gosh. Okay? Or if I hold a book and I say, hey, I know your son likes reading these kinds of books. Did he read this one? And you're not sure. I'm not sure. He might have read that book. Okay? So the modal verb, might, could, must, and then have, and then followed by the past participle, which there are many different ways to make a past participle, right? Could be ed, could have an n sound, it could have a u sound, it could be the same sound as a regular verb. There are many different ways to make that past participle, that PP verb, okay? Now, here's our first sentence. 有人放情书在我桌上。我觉得可能是鲍勃。Oh my god. So, doki, doki, doki. You find a card. Oh my gosh. Woo. Who wrote that letter? So, I would translate this as, someone put a love letter on my desk. Oh my gosh. I think it could have been Bob. Ooh, Bob. Oh my gosh. I thought we were just friends. So, someone put a love letter on my desk. I think it could have been Bob. Oh my gosh. So, do you guys like the character Bob? Well, if you love Bob, maybe you can write a love letter to Bob, and I'll pass it to Bob's voice actor. So, someone put a love letter on my desk. I think it could have been Bob. Oh my gosh. Bob. So, someone put a love letter on my desk. Past tense of put is put. So, this is actually past tense, put. In the present tense, it's put, past tense, put, okay? So someone put a love letter on my desk. You could also say someone left a love letter on my desk. Put and left are basically the same in this sentence. Put is focused on putting it down. Left means they put it on the table and walked away. So it's basically the same meaning. Now, don't add an S to put. So someone puts a love letter on my desk. That makes it present tense. If you use present tense, that means it happens again and again. We're talking about one time in the past. So someone put a love letter on my desk, okay? And then on my desk. So if you're at work or at school or even at home, the place where you sit and work, it's your space. Usually we call that your desk. A few people wrote table. If you're talking about work or school, we would use desk. It's less common to use table. A table is generally bigger and maybe shared with other people. But if it's just for you, it's probably a desk. Okay? And also, we should say a love letter, the word a, because it's the first time you're talking about it and you're saying there's a love letter, a meaning one, okay? The first time you introduce something, you should use the word a. Later, when you're talking about that one love letter, then you can use the word the, okay? But the first time you mention something, you should use a. Someone put a love letter on my desk, okay? And then I think it could have been Bob. Now, again, you could use could or might. Both are okay. It might have been Bob. It could have been Bob, okay? Some students wrote, it could have been from Bob, okay? But here in this sentence, I would not add the word from because we're focused on the action, put. Someone put a love letter on my desk. Who put it there? I think it could have been Bob. It means the person who put the letter. It could have been Bob. It, the person who put the letter, could have been Bob. Does that make sense? So we're talking about that person. It could have been Bob. Now, because we're focused on the action. If the first sentence was, there was a love letter on my desk, the focus is just on the letter, not the action of putting. If the focus is on just the letter, there was a love letter on my desk, you could say it was from Bob, right? Think it could have been from Bob. But if we're focusing on the action someone put, I would just say it could have been Bob, okay? Now, It's a little bit tricky, but you got to think about what is the it, okay? But don't worry too much. If you add the word from and someone hears you say that, it makes sense. So it like will understand what you're saying. So don't get worried about this stuff, okay? Next up, 你这个报告怎么做成这样？你刚刚一定没有在听我说话。Oh, no, no, no. Bad, bad. So I would translate this as, how could you have done the report like this? You must not have been listening to me. You could also say, why did you do the report like this? You must not have listened to me. So, two ways to write the question, two ways to write the second part, okay? So, for the word report, we want to use the word do. How could you have done the report like this? So for report, we usually use the verb do a report, okay? So you don't need to use the word make or write. You could use do the report, okay? I also saw a student use paperwork. How could you have done the paperwork like this? That's okay, but it's a little bit different. Paperwork means lots of papers with lots of small details, but a report means like 报告. It's like something you're giving to someone to tell them about something. While paperwork means like, sounds like it's stuff you need to do, but you don't need to show people, okay? So you could say, how could you have done the report like this? Or why did you do the report like this? Both of these are okay. I saw, what's wrong with your report? Well, okay, yeah, I guess in this sentence, it's not very nice in the beginning, but what's wrong with your report? Sounds like it's not focusing on the action of making the report or doing the report. It's saying that, oh, there's a problem with it, and oh, maybe I'm worried about how your report is. Oh, what's wrong with your report? You couldn't do it? But how did you do it like this? Or why did you do it like this? That would be better, okay? And then the second part, you must not have been listening to me, or you must not have listened to me. Now, that's the present perfect, have listened or have been listening. Like we said before, you can use both, and the meaning is almost the same. You must not have listened to me is focused on at that one time. You must not have been listening to me is focused on that it was over a period of time. It continued on, okay? And then to keep it simple, you must not have listened to me. And some students wrote, you must not have listened to my words. It sounds a little bit more complicated than you need. Just keep it simple and say to me. You must not have listened to me, okay? Let's keep moving. Next up is 如果我不怕狗的话，我应该会当兽医。Really? You think so? But afraid of dogs, that's a problem. But then the second part, are you afraid of blood? Ooh, I kind of am. Ooh, a little bit too scary. So, in English, I would translate this sentence to, if I weren't afraid of dogs, I might have been a veterinarian. Okay? Now, like we've said before, using if it's imaginary, we want to use the word were to do correct grammar. But in spoken English, people break that rule all the time, and we use the word was instead. So a different way to write this in a more relaxing, spoken way would be, if I wasn't afraid of dogs, I might have been a vet. Okay? So veterinarian can be shortened down to vet, V-E-T. Usually in America, you will hear the word vet, V-E-T. And like I said at the beginning of this stream, the T sounds like a stop, vet. So it's not vet. We'd say vet. You stop the sound at the end, V-E-T, vet, okay? So if I weren't afraid of dogs or if I wasn't afraid of dogs, Weren't is the correct way to do it, but everybody says wasn't. It's totally fine. Okay? Now, can we use I am if I am not afraid? No, because here we're imagining a situation. If you're imagining a situation, we want past tense. Okay? If I wasn't afraid of dogs. Okay? And then I might have been a vet, or I might have been a veterinarian. You could also use could. Might and could are the same, so I could have been, or I could have become a vet. Both of these are okay. Been or become, both are okay. But I would have been a vet. It's okay, but it would be better with could. I would have been a vet would be like just the it's more sure. Saying I would have been a vet means you were sure that you would have. Okay? We learned if followed by would, right? If I weren't afraid of dogs, I would have been a vet. That sounds like you're sure. But if you use could or might, you're not sure. Maybe I would have been a vet. Okay? So I might have been a vet, or I could have been a vet. It's not for sure, but maybe. Okay? And then I also saw a student use must have been. Here you would not use must. Must means you're sure of something. I must have been a vet. No, you can't use that you're sure that you... That sounds like in the past you probably were a vet. And here we're imagining it, so we don't want to use must, okay? So you could say would if you're sure that you would have been a vet. But if you're not quite sure, you would use might or could. I could have been a vet. I'm not 100% sure, okay? So veterinarian or vet. Now, several students use the word veterinary. Now, veterinary is an adjective, maybe a veterinary hospital. That would be a hospital for pets, veterinary hospital. But you need that N sound at the end to make it a person, veterinarian, veterinarian, okay? Listen for that A-N at the end, veterinarian, okay? But keep it simple. You could just say vet, V-E-T. I could have been a vet, okay? Now, let's move on to our final part, which is Lesson 4, Conversation 1, Part 5. So, we're going to the gym. We talked to this kind of annoying salesperson. He goes, "Hey, darling, how are you today?" Or, oh my, you're so sweet. What do you think you want today?" So she's a little bit too friendly and a little bit creepy. "Oh, sweetie, do you want that silver plan?" So, oh my gosh. So we have the silver plan, gold plan, and platinum plan. Silver plan, just use the free weights. The gold plan, Bruno will yell at you, "Lift faster, rah!" And then the platinum plan, Bruno comes to your house and whoosh, hits you with a chair. Holy moly. So, I don't know if I would like Bruno. Maybe you would like Bruno. He sounds like a big, scary meathead. So a big muscle man, a buff guy that goes crazy. A little bit too much, I think. But maybe the silver plan's for me, but maybe the platinum plan would be great to push you to exercise every day, right? What would you choose? Okay, but for our homework, we're going to combine some of the ideas from this conversation about the different plans, and then also mix in some of the might, could, must have stuff, okay? Now, our first sentence is, 我现在头好晕，我一定是中暑了. Oh my gosh. Hopefully you haven't felt this way this summer yet. It's so hot outside. So I would say, oh, I'm feeling dizzy. I must have heat stroke. Oh, so I'm feeling dizzy. So dizzy is the feeling when you feel like your head is spinning, okay? Now, you don't need to include the word head when you use the word dizzy. If you say dizzy, I know it's about your head. So I'm feeling dizzy, okay? So I said, I'm feeling dizzy. So I use present continuous, meaning right now, and it continues. I am feeling dizzy. I'm feeling dizzy. You could also say, I feel so dizzy. So that would be present simple, I feel, meaning it's true. It's true right now. I feel so dizzy. Ooh, okay? Both are okay. I would use continuous because it's still happening and it continues going on. Ooh, okay? I also saw a few students say, my head is dizzy. You don't need to say my head. If you say dizzy, I know it's in your head. So you can just say, I feel dizzy, okay? And then I saw a few people say, I have dizziness. Now, dizziness is a noun. That's okay. But this sounds too complicated. Using the adjective, dizzy is more common. I feel dizzy or I am dizzy, okay? I also saw a student use faint. I feel faint. Now, dizzy and faint are similar, but not exactly the same. Dizzy means you feel like your head is spinning. Faint means you feel very tired, like you might fall down. They're similar, but not exactly the same. Faint is a little bit more serious. Maybe you're going to fall down. So, got to be careful if you feel faint, okay? So, I'm feeling dizzy or I feel faint. Both of them are okay for this sentence, but faint is a little stronger. Okay. And then I must have heat stroke. So heat stroke is a noun in English. So we would say have. I must have heat stroke. Okay. Now, like we've learned before, have can also be written as have got. So I saw a few students write, I must have got heat stroke. That's okay. But I personally would probably just say, I must have heat stroke, because I must have got heat stroke is one more sound. And sometimes when I speak, I'm lazy. Keep it shorter is easier. Okay? So I must have got heat stroke is okay too. I also saw I must have been heat stroke. Now, must have been is talking about the past tense, and you would follow it with an adjective in this situation. I must have been tired yesterday. That would be describing the past. So we don't want the word been here. So just I must have heat stroke. Have heat stroke. Okay? Not too many issues on that one. People did pretty well on that. Okay. The next one is oh. Oh. So the next sentence is 我昨天看到你跟一个女生手牵手，那一定是你的女朋友吧？ Oh, I think so. I saw you. I saw you. So I would say, I saw you holding hands with a girl yesterday. That must have been your girlfriend. I saw you holding hands with a girl yesterday. That must have been your girlfriend. Okay? First thing that I've told you for a bunch of these, remember 2 sentences. Okay? In English, if we have 2 ideas, we need 2 sentences. Unless you use a connecting word. But for this, 2 sentences. Okay? So, I saw you holding hands with a girl. Okay? So the verb I use is holding hand. Okay? And then I'd say holding hands with a girl. So you holding hands with a girl. Now, I also saw you and a girl holding hands. That's okay too. It changes the focus. Instead of one holding hands with another, it's these 2 holding hands. That's okay. And then I also saw people use hand in hand. That's not wrong. I saw you hand in hand with a girl. But if we're talking about walking down the street, usually it's more common to say holding hands. I saw you holding hands, okay? Or we were holding hands while we walked down the street, something like that, okay? I also saw hanging hands, H-A-N-G-I-N-G. I think that might be a typo. It should be holding hands. Hanging hands, hanging is your hands are like this. So you're not hanging hands with someone. You're holding hands. Okay. Second part, that must have been your girlfriend. You could also say, she must have been your girlfriend, okay? Both are okay. If you use that, you're talking about that is pointing to the girl in the first sentence. I saw you holding hands with a girl yesterday. That's a girl. That must have been your girlfriend. That meaning the girl you were holding hands with, okay? Or you could say, she must be your girlfriend. That would be okay. She must be your girlfriend. And why is it must be? She must be your girlfriend. In the present tense, would be because she still is, I think. If you say she must have been your girlfriend, that's in the past tense. That sounds like she must have been your girlfriend back then. So that sounds like maybe she isn't anymore. So she must have been your girlfriend back then. But if you use that, you can use the past tense. That must have been your girlfriend. That girl in that situation. That must have been your girlfriend. So it's a subtle, tricky thing. They're all okay. All these ways to say it are okay, but it would be best to say that must have been your girlfriend or she must be your girlfriend, okay? Now, next sentence, the last but not least, is you're talking to your friend and you're giving your friend some advice about traveling. Your friend is, ooh, I'm not sure where to go. And you say, oh, you could go here, you could go here, and then blah. 如果你没有太多预算，去泰国可能是个好选择。Okay? So you say, oh, maybe you could go to London. Oh, that's kind of expensive. And so you could say, okay, if you're on a tight budget, going to Thailand might be a good choice. So if you're on a tight budget, going to Thailand might be a good choice. Okay? So this is saying maybe, I'm not sure if this is true, but if this is true, then here's the choice, okay? If you're on a tight budget, going to Thailand might be a good choice, okay? So this is using a phrase we learned in our dialogue, on a tight budget. A budget means how much money you can spend. If it's tight, that means you don't want to spend too much. I can spend this much, but I can't spend more than that. I can't go outside that, or I don't want to. So I'm on a tight budget. I squeeze my wallet. It's tight, okay? If you're on a tight budget, going to Thailand might be a good choice. So if you want to change this to be, if you don't want to use the phrase we learned, you could say, if you don't have a big budget. So it's the opposite meaning. If you're on a tight budget, so you're focusing on being careful with your money, if you're on a tight budget. If you want to focus on that there isn't a lot of money, you could say, if you don't have a big budget, okay? If you don't have a big budget, going to Thailand might be a good choice, okay? Now, there are a few other ways people wrote it. If you haven't had too many budget, that doesn't really work. Or if you don't have extra budget, that doesn't really work either. Now, budget does not mean money. So if you wrote those two, I think it would work if you use the word money. If you don't have extra money, going to Thailand might be a good choice. So a budget is like a set plan for what money you want to spend. So the budget is like that plan. So you have a big budget or a small budget, big budget or a tight budget, okay? but you don't want to say too many budget or too much budget or something like that. It doesn't work. That would be for money. You don't have too much money or too much money. You can't say too many money, right? Because you can't count money, okay? You'd say too much money. If you don't have too much money, or if you don't have extra money, or if you haven't got too much money, something like that, okay? And then the second part, going to Thailand might be a good choice. I saw go to Thailand. Now, we can't use go to Thailand might be a good choice. It should be going. Okay, why? You could also say visiting Thailand might be a good choice. Now, going to Thailand or visiting Thailand are both okay because these are what's called a gerund. It's a verb with ing, and we use it like it's a noun. Going to Thailand, that's our subject. We're using it like it's a thing. Going to Thailand might be a good choice, or visiting Thailand might be a good choice. Now, I also saw students write visiting to Thailand. Now, the verb visiting doesn't need the word to. So visiting includes that you're going to a place inside of the word. If you use visit, I know you're going somewhere. So you don't need the word to. Visiting Thailand. You don't need to say visiting to Thailand. It would be going to Thailand or visiting Thailand. Okay. I also saw it might be right for you. That's okay too. Meaning it might be a good fit for you. Like it fits your budget. It fits your plan, right? It might be right for you. I also saw it might be a good option. Okay. That would be okay too. Going to Thailand might be a good option. Okay. Someone wrote it will be a good option. Now, will sounds like you're more sure of it. It will be a good option. It would be better to say might, because you don't know what this person wants to do. So you want to add that you're not exactly sure. To show that you're not exactly sure, use the word might or could. Going to Thailand might be a good choice, right? If you say going to Thailand will be a good choice, and they say, how are you so sure? I've been to Thailand 10 times. You go, oh, sorry. But if you use might, you're not exactly sure, okay? So whenever you have a feeling this is a good idea or a feeling about something, you could use might or could. You can also use the word maybe. The word maybe will be in, I think, the next lesson. It's coming soon, okay? I also saw someone, it's likely a good choice to go to Thailand. Now that's okay. It's making a little bit more complicated. It's likely a good choice to go to Thailand. That the grammar is correct, but I think it's a little bit more natural to say going to Thailand might be a good choice. Okay? You could say it might be a good choice to go to Thailand. That would be okay too, if you want to start with the word it. Okay? Now, let's see. The answer is really clear. Great. Can I say it might be right for you? Yeah, that's fine. If you're on a tight budget, going to Thailand might be right for you. Sure, that's okay. Many different ways to say the same idea, right? Just like when you're speaking Chinese, you could have one idea in your head. There might be 10 ways to say it. So if your answer is a little bit different than mine, it's okay. It doesn't mean it's wrong. Like every idea, there might be more than one way to write it. Okay? Let's see. Ariel asks, what are the differences between option and choice? Oh, that's hard. Let me think. Is there a difference between option and choice? I would say day to day, like my first thought is that they're the same. Like if you and me are going to see a movie, and okay, just there are two movies that are going to be in the movie theater soon. Akira, which is a Japanese movie, and a movie called Perfect Blue. which is also a Japanese movie. I know they'll be in the theater now, so I'm using them as examples. Now, you and me want to go to see a movie. I could ask you, okay, there are two options. We could see Akira or we could see Perfect Blue. Okay? Or I could ask you, there are two choices. We could go see Akira or we could go see Perfect Blue. Is the sentence any different? Not really, no. Choices and options are basically the same. Now, there might be a slight difference if you look up the definition, but day-to-day use, they're pretty much the same. The one thing you can think about is the word choice comes from the word choose. So if you use the word choice, you know that there will be a person picking something or choosing something, okay? And so there might be situations where that causes the two words to have slightly different meanings or different uses, but most of the time, option and choice are basically the same, okay? I'll do some research and look up, try to figure out, is there a situation when they would be different? But the top of my head, and for you guys, most of the time, you don't need to worry about the difference. Option and choice are basically the same. So kind of like might and could. If you really want to read about it, you could find slight differences between might and could, but day-to-day life, they're almost the same. So option and choice, day-to-day life, they're almost the same. So if you really, really want to find the small details, you could figure out a way that they're slightly different. But generally, they're very close, okay? I'll take a look for you later. I'll look it up and try to find situations where they're not exactly the same. But thinking about like, okay, in a video game, they have an options menu, but it's not called a choices menu, right? So why exactly? I'll have to look it up and see why the slight differences between the two. But generally, they're almost the same, okay? In our dialogue, we have the three plans, the silver plan, the gold plan, the platinum plan. And those are all three different options. You could also say three different choices, okay? And that way, that would be the same, okay? What would you choose? Would you choose just lifting weights? Would you choose Bruno yelling at you or Bruno hitting you with things? Or would you choose the last choice, which is nothing, stay home and relax? Okay, so let's end our stream here. If anyone has any final questions, post them in the chat. I'll give you another minute or two. Maybe I'll blah, blah, blah for another minute. And then if you would like to chat one-on-one with me, you could send a message to Kyle Moai, okay? If you haven't added Kyle Moai as a friend on Facebook, do it now. And you can send me a text and I'll be here to chat for a few minutes. If no one texts me, maybe I'll come text you. Try to find someone who was in the chat today, okay? And if you have any more questions, feel free to post a message in our Facebook group. I would like to see more posts from you guys, the students. If you find anything interesting, think of situations to use some of the English that you learned. Or maybe like if you go to the gym and think about signing up for a membership, share with us. Try to use the language you've learned with our lessons. And I'd love to see you guys practicing more. Okay? So I know you get a lot of listening practice and some speech practice in our app, but I want to see you do some writing practice in our group, okay? So try your best and keep on practicing, okay? And looks like no more questions for today. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night. And I'll stick around if you want to chat. Send me a message. I'll see you next week where we'll talk about the the frustrated character and how they deal with this skincare sales associate. And maybe they just go, oh, forget this. I don't need anything. And where do they go from there? You'll find out next time, okay? So I'll talk to you next week, and have a good night, everybody. And I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye.